There's a risk you take when you participate in 12-step groups or in online meetings where everyone there is there because they have a problem. It's common that one person gets attracted to another person in the meeting, and sometimes relationships are formed. But keep in mind, both people are there, and it's a good thing that people with problems are there, but they're there because they have problems with substances, with relationships, with telling the truth, or all of the above. So what do you do when someone has set their sights on you and now they're acting sneaky and weird and apparently not taking "no thanks, I don't want to date you" for an answer? My letter today is from someone I'll call Liz, and she writes, "Dear Anna, I'm wondering how to get out of a situation with someone who seems deceptive and seems to be playing head games." All right. I've got my fairy pencil here. I'm going to circle things that I want to go back to on a second reading, but let's see what's going on for Liz here. Years ago, she says, I became relationship anorexic as a way to stop wrecking my life. Relationship anorexic or anorectic is the word that people use in some 12-step programs for avoiding relationships of any kind, almost like a food anorectic avoids food. I was never glad to be relationship anorexic, so looking back, I think I was sending mixed signals. I stood by it, though, because it made my life so much more manageable. I'm now in a 12-step recovering program for people who grew up in dysfunctional families, and I think I'm ready to start dating again, but I'm still unclear on how to manage my current situation. There's a fellow I know from in-person meetings and from one of my Zoom meetings. I'll call him Bill. He's been flirting with me for a couple of years, and I told him plainly that I was a relationship anorexic. For the longest time, he kept after me, asking me out, inviting me to events, giving me little gifts, and saying there were no strings attached. I think he was honest about this no strings part, as far as I can tell, but still it felt like he was trying to wait out my relationship anorexia. I found out later he's actually still married, and I was so glad my instincts were warning me off of him. I've also seen him fly into rages a couple times now in group settings, and he never apologized or made amends. Now that I'm starting to heal and thinking about dating, I know that I don't want someone sneaky or someone who flies into rages so easily and who doesn't see anything wrong with that. So the next time he asked me to an event, I had a stronger tone and firmer words so that he'd stop asking, and I think that part worked. Here's the problem. At first, he stopped coming to a weekly recovery Zoom meeting that we were both attending. But now he appears to be signing on under a false name. Ew. The first time the new user came, his background photo was a distinctive home hobbies photo that Bill had used regularly. He hopped out of the meeting and quickly rejoined with a different background, and now he comes in each week with another background photo. Between that and part of his personal tagline that I've never seen anyone else use, it's pretty clear that the new user under another name is Bill, obvious in a way that I wonder if he wants to get caught. So far, I've taken the position of just not playing along. For example, when the new user asks in the chat about the meeting format, I let someone else answer even though I was host. The new person at the meeting never turns on his camera or shares, but I feel uncomfortable around someone who's playing games or being sneaky, and the situation could become unhealthy for the meeting too, if it's not already. I'm also angry about the head games and frustrated that I'm not quite sure what some good options are. Can you help me think through some options? Yes, I can, Liz. Okay. So yeah, 12-step meeting dynamics, they're so amazing. You know, it just never ceases to amaze me that for nearly 100 years, there have been 12-step meetings, and they continue to have more or less the same traditions, the same culture, the same rules, and it varies a little bit from meeting to meeting, as it's, you know, which is encouraged, that they each get to be unique. It's a whole world, and I spent many years going to a lot of meetings, and it was really, really helpful to me. And so because I ended up being kind of an old timer after more than 20 years and sponsoring hundreds, you know, people would ask my opinion. So this is my opinion of this, because I would be totally freaked out and icked out too. I might even be thinking of leaving the meeting and joining another one, but I'm not encouraging you to do that. I just know that I really wouldn't like this if it were done to me. But here's what I noticed from what you said, okay? The whole thing of being a relationship anorexic, I encourage you to, well, maybe you're already, if you know that phrase, maybe you're going also to a 12-step program that addresses that. And that would be really positive too. I think, you know how a lot of people say, don't date anybody in 12-step, don't poop in the nest, or what is it? I don't know. 13th stepping. And the thing is, good relationships can come from that, from meeting somebody in a 12-step. But this is the thing, it took me a while to really grok in meetings, which is that everybody is there because they have some grave difficulty that makes it necessary for them to get into a special program. And I think that when I first got there, I was so impressed with everybody's recovery. And because it spoke to me so vividly of what was possible, I maybe had everybody up on a pedestal. And so I was shocked in both when I dated somebody and when I made friends, that people ended up being, you know, kind of messed up, maybe somewhere in the area of how messed up I was. They weren't on any kind of a pedestal. People go to 12-step meetings because they have a problem. They've admitted that they're powerless over the problem. They're there to work on it. Now, we're red-blooded. We get attracted to each other. It's bound to happen. And to some degree, you know, I have a friend who says, when they say you shouldn't date anybody in your first year of recovery, it's sort of a truism that people say. It's not a rule or anything. It's just something people say. But somebody said, oh, that's just an excuse. You know, that's just how you let somebody down easy. You go, oh, sorry, I'm in my first year of recovery. In a way, I think you're doing that, Liz, when you say, I'm a relationship anorexic. That's not why. The reason you don't want to date him, maybe you are, but the reason you don't want to date this guy is because you're not into him. And there's a nice way to say that, but when somebody can't really take no for an answer, they may need clearer information, because you're setting up this like expectation that, yeah, if he waits it out, you will come around. He has strong feelings for you. And you know how when you like somebody strongly, it just seems like they're going to like you back. They would have to, because it's so right, you know? It feels like that. So that's where he is. That's natural. It might be misguided because you've been sort of, you know, pushing him off. But if you're not clear, especially with somebody who's been hurt in the area of connecting with other people, which is basically everybody in a 12-step meeting, it's better to be clear, gentle, but clear. So you could say, you know, well, let's go back in time. Let's pretend you can go back in time, which you can't. But at that first time when you told him, you know, that I told him plainly that I was a relationship anorexic, that's not no. That's not no. He took that as a challenge, evidently. So what might have been great in that moment is just to say, I'm sorry. No, I don't feel that. I like you, but I don't feel that way about you. And yeah, it doesn't feel good to be told that. And so we hate to hurt somebody like that. But when it's told gently and respectfully, it can help put the idea to rest that there's hope for this guy to keep pursuing you. And he'll feel sad, he'll go through his feelings about it, and then he'll have room to be interested in somebody else and throw the dice again, and maybe it's somebody who likes him back. Yay, he gets loved. That's good. That's a gift we give to people when we're clear that we're not interested. But not being interested is different than being a relationship anorexic, which could mean I'm interested, but I'm just scared to move forward. I think that's a fib that people say sometimes too when they're trying to let others down easy. So if you've ever been broken up with and somebody said, well, I'm just afraid or I'm not ready for a relationship right now. Sometimes that's the nice way of saying I'm just not into it. So because this guy can't seem to accept it, clarity is good, but clarity with as much kindness as you can muster. And I know when I've gotten like the ick from somebody on this stuff, it's hard to be kind. And when I look back, I only wish I were kind, because just because I feel freaked out and kind of boundaries violated, I still want to be kind. But as firm as I have to be to keep it from happening anymore. So here you are, you're the secretary of the meeting. And now it's him, and he's coming in under a false name, and that is creepy. And so, well, I wonder, because it's a Zoom meeting, and a lot of 12-step meetings are on Zoom now, there's probably protocols different people have. You know, I just wonder if you kind of searched on AI, what do other 12-step fellowships say about this, about like pretending to be somebody you're not in a 12-step meeting. Some meetings require the camera on, some don't. The 12-step programs try to be anonymous, so there's often a first name and no last name, and you can change your name on a Zoom call. You hover over your name on the participants panel and change your name. I'm so in touch with this because I lead big Zoom calls every week for people who do the daily practice, and I lead group coaching. So I've, for years, been leading big Zoom calls. So I encourage people to change their name to something anonymous or private if they want to, but this is where his asking what the format is when he knows darn well, because he's been there. I get it. He's pretending. And it's just so sad. What it tells me, Liz, is that he's just really messed up. And I have feeling for him on that, because that's why he's in a program. So you can't really hold it against people that they are, squirrely a little bit emotionally and in the way they communicate. But it doesn't mean you have to put up with this as the secretary. So I suppose if it were me, this is what I might do. You can take what you like and leave the rest. But I might email him personally. I assume you have some contact info for him, or text, and just say, I believe that's you on the meeting, and I'm really uncomfortable with it. It seems like you're pretending you're somebody you're not. And I don't think that's cool for the meeting. And would you please stop? Would you please identify as yourself and make it clear that you're the person we know, or leave the meeting? You can ask him. But here's the thing, he does not have to leave, and unless he's violating a rule. So the second thing you can do is at your next business meeting, make a motion that the rules be adjusted to say something identifiable or have your camera on. You can make a rule like that if you want, or you can at least propose it. And a little passive-aggressive part of me wants to go, even though it might not pass in a meeting, you could raise it in the meeting and say, at our next business meeting, I'll be raising the point, or we'll be discussing the point that people have to have their cameras on so that people don't impersonate. Passive-aggressively, that might be what I do. But that's why you talk to him as well. And put that out there. So this is such a good microcosm of boundaries, because the boundary is the rule of the meeting. And for anybody who's never been to 12-step recovery, meetings follow a common set of, they're called traditions, they're principles for governing the group. And then beyond that, they're autonomous. They can vote to do things a certain way. They can say people are allowed to chit-chat between shares or comment on them, or they are not allowed to do that. There can be coffee, or there can be absolutely no coffee. So every group can decide what their meeting includes, and whether or not the cameras are on is a thing that people do. So it's also, I lead large calls, and I'm very concerned about this too, and people's online safety. And I often warn them, like, be careful about giving your personal info out. And it's interesting because 12-step meetings that are in person, right? It's easy to meet each other, and they pass a phone list, and it's common, and that's good. It's okay, but there's a risk that we take, especially when we're in meetings where others might be attracted to us. So the best solution, I believe, overall, regardless of what you do about the logistics and communicating this, is when someone is attracted to you and you're not attracted to them, cut it off. Don't be friends with that person. Don't give them hope. Make it clear. And this was one of the things I was mentored to do in a very important phase of my healing, when I was ready to stop having yucky relationships with unavailable people. And I got to the point where I wanted to be either alone or in a great relationship, but never again a bad one. And alone would be better than that. And I finally accepted with clarity that fact. Well, what I was advised to do is cut off friendships with anybody who was attracted to me, but I didn't feel the same. And on the premise that, and I'm not saying you've led this guy on, but I just want to say why it's important to cut it off when you don't feel that way about somebody, like to cut it off clearly. I actually had to tell a few people in my life, listen, you've been a wonderful friend, but I need to end our friendship. I feel that you are interested in me, and I know it's not a feeling that I will return. And I am working on my emotional availability, and so I can't be in this kind of unequal friendship anymore. And I hope you can forgive me. I'm sorry. I wish you the best. Goodbye. Isn't that weird? Oh, it's so clean though. And my experience was people sort of sputtered and they were like, but I don't, but they're so used to lying. But you know when somebody likes you, right? And in one case, it was because I had feelings for them and they didn't for me, and I had to end that one too. And that hurt, and it felt great. It was so freeing. It was just like, okay, let's be in reality here. Let's not be having friendships where there's that underneath, where somebody's hoping. And that way, when it's very clear, you're not giving false hope. And I think that's important for people in recovery. There's so many, whatever the recovery program is, whether the problem is alcoholism or drugs or gambling or money or sexual relationships, whatever the problem is, like everybody has this big wound in the heart on how to connect with other people. So we must be very kind, yet very clear. Trauma in childhood definitely affects our ability to connect with each other. If you think that you've been affected by trauma and it makes you struggle with connection and how to communicate these nuanced things, I have a list of signs that this may indeed be the case. Do you want to see it? You can download it for free right here, and I will see you very soon.